Here we go. Surfing Life with Malcolm is always more. So we're learning to use our mind for success. Got all sorts of kids here. It's Monday. We finished our homeschool. It's Monday afternoon. Crystal clear. Love living in paradise. All right, let's move on. Now, okay, learning to use our mind for success. Come back. All right. So look, man's place in creation. That's what we're going to cover. This one's longer, so get ready for it. I put a lot of thought, I've written them all out already, but I kind of added more to this, okay? So remember, we're covering Mal's existential thoughts or truth. Mine is what we're covering, but what I want you to do, the whole exercise is for you to experience the feeling, right? What's acting upon you as you contemplate this. And don't just listen to what I say. Pause it. Stop. Think about it. As I was putting together, it took a long time. Stop, think about what I said, So let's recapitulate together. Life is all that there is. Everything comes from it, ourselves included. So you, me, and God thinks. We know, and that thing which he thinks or knows, and you think or know, appears from himself and from yourself, and is made out of him and you. What am I saying there? We think, and God thinks. What he thinks, the things come from it. What we think, those things come from it. That's how it works. So, let's get on to the next part. Let's move forward. Man's place in creation. I wanted to know, how did we come? Why? Us here. Why? And if I understand why, that part, then I'll know, wow, I can start to answer all these questions. So, where does man come from? Where do you and I come from? He is, we are, right? He is. Therefore, it follows that we are made out of God, since God or Spirit is all, right? He, God is. Therefore, it follows that he or we are made out of God, since God or Spirit is all. Being made out of God, we must partake of his nature, for we are made in his image. So we're the center of God in God. I know that sounds weird, but whatever God is in the universal, we must be in the individual world, right? The creation of everything that's here is everything. So whatever the whole creation is in the universal, we're part of it in the individual world here. The difference of God and man is one of degree and not quality. Man is not self-made. We're made out of God. So ask yourself, why'd God do this? No living person can answer this question. This is something known only of our Father the Creator, right? We might suppose that God made us to live with him and enjoy us with him, to be one with our Father. That'd be a great way to think about it, right? He created us so he could hang out with us. That sure makes me feel good. Well, it's true. Indeed, those who have felt this most deeply have had a corresponding spiritual power that leads us to suppose that God did really make you and I as a companion. When you start to think about this and realize it, it starts to open up that whole concept of love. We're the individual and God's the universal. For as the Father has life in himself, so he has given to the Son to have life in himself. Our minds are made out of God's mind, and all that we are or ever will be, all that we have or ever will have, must partake of the divine nature. We didn't make it so, but it is so, and we must accept the fact and see what we can do with it. If we have the same power in our individual life that God has in the universal, then this discovery is going to mean freedom from all the bondage. When we learn how to use our power. Let's read that again. We didn't make it so, but it is so. And we got to accept the fact and see what we can do with it. So if we have the same power in our individual life that God has in the universal, then this discovery, knowing this, is going to mean freedom from all bondage. When we learn how to use that power. As God governs his universal world, so we govern our individual world. Always subject, though, to the greater law of life. So this could not be otherwise if we realize what follows from it. For so realizing, we find ourselves living in a very different world from the one in which we thought we were living. When you start to figure this out, things are going to change. God governs not through physical law as a result, but first by inner knowing. Then the physical follows. What's that inner knowing? We're going to get into what thought is and how thought creates. In the same way, we govern our world by the process which we call, from the want of a better name, the power of thought. Our inner life is one with the Father. There can be no separation. For the self-evident reason, there is nothing to separate us from God. Because there's nothing but life. Remember what we covered in the first 3 lessons here, what I was talking about? Life comes from. Where is life? What is life? So once we know that, the separation into two things implies putting a different element between them. But as there is nothing different from God, the unity of God and you, it's firmly established forever. Good thinking, hey? My Father and I are one. That's a simple statement from a great soul who perceive life as it really is, and not from the standpoint of our outer conditions. You know who we're talking about there, right? Taking as the starting point that we, man, has the same life as God, it follows that we use the same creative process. Everything is one, comes from the same source, and returns again to it. The things which are seen are not made of the things which do appear. What was he saying there? What we see comes from what we do not see. That's the explanation for the whole visible universe, and it's the only possible explanation. As God's thoughts make worlds and populates them with all the living things, so does our thought. It makes our world and populates it with all the experiences we've had. By the activity of our thoughts, things come into our life. And we are limited because we have not known the truth. We've thought that outside things controlled us, when all the time we had that within which we could have changed everything and given us freedom from bondage. The question naturally arises then, well, why did God create us and make us a free agent? If God had created us in such a way as to compel us to do or be anything that was not of our choosing, well, we'd not been individuals at all. We would have just been Autobots. It's my word. I made it up. Since we know we're individuals, we know that God made us just so. We are just discovering the reason why. It gets better. See, if you wake up to this, the greatest truth of all ages, you're going to find will answer all the questions. You will be satisfied that things are what they are. If we wake up to what we just talked about, the last 3 lessons, we're going to be satisfied that things are what they are. We're going to realize how they all came about. You see, you'll perceive that we may use our God-given power so to work, to think, and to live, that we no longer hinder or prevent the greater law of operating through you or me. Cover that one more time together. You'll perceive that we may use our own God-given power. The power that God has for creation, we have it ourselves. And once we learn to work, to think and to live, we'll no longer hinder or prevent the greater law operating through you and me. We have that universal law. It's at our fingertips. According to the clearness and the perception and the greatness of your realization of this power, will you provide within yourself a starting point through which God may operate? Gotta love this sound of all these kids having fun, hey? Hear them giggling? That's what it's about. When we really clearly grasp this power, it's going to provide you with that starting point. And then God will start operating through you. Creation will. There'll no longer be a sense of separation, but in its place you're going to come to the divine assurance that you're one with God. Now you'll find your freedom from all the suffering, whether it be a mind or body or your surrounding environment. By now, together, you're beginning to notice the path we're on, right? You thought it was all about God, but it's not. It's about you. This path is all about you being able to create your great paradise. It's becoming clear we can use the God-given power for our advantage, but we can be to our disadvantage as well, because the law is always governing our use, right? We can use this God-given power to our advantage, but it can be to our disadvantage, because that law is always governing our use. Remember what that law is. We can't create. We can create, but we don't. The power belongs to God. Next time together, we can look forward to the beginning understanding. We're starting to unravel this. It started when I got to this point. Everything, I was back to where things were going great again, right? The understanding. So we're going to help you to know you can do with your life whatever you want and make out of it that which you wish. Surfing Life with Malcolm is always more. So we're learning to use our mind for success. Part of our businesses and our teams, this is a great training to use. So let's see you again when we get back together on this. Thanks a lot. 10 minutes. We're catching that wave, the good wave for our success.